Part 1. They say he painted nightmares, but what if he simply saw the truth? A cold wind sliced through the Dutch town of Hieronymus Bosch. Smoke rose from chimneys and mingled with the fog, smudging the boundaries between the earthly and the divine. In a narrow stone house at the edge of the cathedral quarter, a boy stood motionless before a blank wooden panel. He was only 13, but his eyes, those dark, searching eyes, seemed older, almost ancient, as though they had already seen too much. His name was Hieronymus van Aken, but the world would come to know him as Bosch, the boy with the brush who dared to paint not angels or kings but monsters. Twisted limbs, hollow faces, fire-eyed beasts that crawled from the corners of his soul and spilled onto his canvas like spilled blood. That morning he had dreamt of drowning. Not in water but in color. Crimson reds, toxic greens, sulfuric yellows. He had tried to scream, but the pigments poured into his throat. When he awoke, his mouth tasted like ash. His grandfather, Jan van Aken, had been a master painter, a man of saints and altarpieces. His father, Anthonius, followed the same sacred path. But Hieronymus, he saw something else. He saw what lay behind the veil. Even as a child, he would sneak into the cathedral at night. He would light a single candle and stare up at the murals. But he never looked at the saints. No, he searched the shadows beneath their feet, the cracks in the walls, the places where paint had flaked and something darker peered through. It was during one of these midnight visits that he first heard the whisper. It wasn't a voice, not really. More like the flicker of a thought that wasn't his. A suggestion sharp as a blade. Not all sins are committed by choice. Some are born of vision. He turned, but the cathedral was empty. By the time Bosch was 16, he had painted his first triptych. It was never shown publicly. His family called it the mistake. His mother wept when she saw it, and his father burned it in the garden behind the house. But the flames didn't destroy it. Not really. They only carved the images deeper into Bosch's mind. A tower made of skin. Birds with human hands. A child swallowing a priest whole. Where did you see such things? His father demanded. Bosch didn't answer. Because the truth was unbearable. He hadn't seen them. He felt them. The town whispered about him. They called him strange, cursed, even mad. But nobles began to visit. Secretly. They would slip coins under the table requesting visions from Bosch. He refused most of them. Except one. In the winter of 1478, a man arrived dressed in fur-lined robes. His face was hidden, but his hands trembled, not from cold but from fear. "Paint for me the Last Judgment," the man said. "Not as the church tells it, but as you see it." Bosch agreed. The painting took 9 months. He did not eat with others, did not sleep. At night, the townspeople swore they heard scratching, like claws dragging across wood, and sometimes, crying. When the painting was unveiled, even the noblemen recoiled. It was chaos. A sky split with fire. Humans turning into animals, animals turning into smoke. Angels with no eyes. Devils with human smiles. Bosch was 28. He buried the coin the nobleman paid him with beneath a dying tree. Years passed. His fame grew, but so did the toll. He began to suffer seizures, visions that left him gasping for breath, his fingers twisted like the claws he painted. He spoke to no one for days. His wife, Aelite, found him once hunched before a blank canvas, whispering, "It's already there. I just need to carve it out." The nightmares returned, louder, clear. Not just flames and beasts but memories of people he had never met, cities he had never visited. He once woke screaming a name no one recognized, Iskadar. When asked what it meant, Bosch replied, "It's the city after death." The church became nervous. Some priests claimed Bosch was touched by the divine. Others called him a heretic. He was summoned by the Brotherhood of Our Lady, a prestigious religious guild, to defend the spiritual nature of his work. Standing before robed judges, Bosch smiled. "I do not paint demons to celebrate them," he said. "I paint them because they are real." Part 2. The Garden of Broken Heavens. The Devil in the Paint. Bosch's hands moved faster than his thoughts, each brushstroke a dagger into the fabric of reality. The garden he now painted was no Eden. It was a grotesque tapestry of lust, decay, and surreal visions that danced on the edge of madness. The triptych grew in terrifying silence, the centerpiece of what would become the garden of earthly delights. He no longer painted with oils alone. There were whispers, his pigments mixed with ashes from funeral pyres, soils from plague-ridden fields, blood of birds sacrificed at dusk. Whether truth or rumor, the effect was the same. People stared into the painting and could not look away. They dreamed of it. Some wept. Some laughed. Some swore they heard the cries of condemned souls rising from the panel's depths. Bosch never explained his work. When questioned by his patron, Count William of Brussels, he replied only, "What you see is merely the skin. What it covers is what you fear most." His studio, now more shrine than workshop, smelled of incense and rotting flowers. Relics hung from the rafters: bones, strange feathers, fragments of books banned by the church. The painter had become a myth in his own time. Was he prophet or heretic? Alchemist or madman? One night, a monk traveled across half the empire to meet Bosch. His name was Brother Matthias, a quiet man with ink-stained fingers and a face lined by solitude. He brought with him a parchment, yellowed with time, marked with symbols Bosch recognized instantly. Ancient, forbidden, familiar. "You have seen them," Matthias said, laying a trembling hand on the triptych. "You know what this is." Bosch didn't deny it. "I've seen more than them. I've been there." The monk paled. "Then you know what comes." Bosch nodded. "I've painted it." Matthias tried to burn the painting that night. He failed. The fire would not take it. When angels wither. Bosch's fame spread like disease, irresistible and dangerous. His paintings, hellscapes and dream worlds, were coveted by nobles, scholars, even inquisitors. They called him the Eye of the Apocalypse, the painter of nightmares, the cartographer of sin. But those who looked too long into his work often found themselves haunted by more than pigment. In Bruges, a countess slit her wrists after commissioning a private piece that featured herself with peacocks and serpents. Her final words: "He showed me what I truly am." In Paris, a scholar claimed Bosch's triptych opened while he slept and devoured his sanity. He spent his final days scratching invisible insects from his skin. Bosch did not flinch. Each painting was an exorcism, a mirror, a warning. But as his fame grew, his body began to fail. His hands shook when holding a brush. His sleep was fractured by images he could not escape: burning cities, bleeding fruit, mouths with no faces, wings made of screaming children. He grew cold even in summer. And in his dreams, the red-eyed figure from his childhood returned. But it no longer lurked in corners. It now sat beside him as he painted, whispered with his voice, moved his fingers when he faltered. "I am you," it said, "and you are the gate." Then came the black day. His wife, Aelite, the one anchor to the world of warmth and light, was found dead in their garden, curled in the fetal position, face turned toward the earth. Her eyes were open, and her mouth was shaped in a scream no one heard. Bosch never painted again with human colors. He scraped pigments from grave dirt, mixed oils with tears. The final paintings emerged from this void, darker, deeper, impossible to interpret without feeling a part of your soul twist and recoil. He no longer slept. Or if he did, it was not in this world. Part 3: The Trial of Imagination. The villagers had gathered in the square with torches, pitchforks, and judgment on their tongues. They whispered of witches, of curses, of demonic possession hidden in plain sight. They spoke not of the preacher who struck children, nor the magistrate who embezzled grain, but of the quiet painter with the strange eyes and stranger visions. Hieronymus stood before the inquisitor, not with trembling hands, but with a strange calm that unnerved even the accusers. He had brought no defense, no witnesses, only a rolled canvas in his arms, a final work, unfinished, pulsing with dread and color. "What do you say to the charge of heresy?" the inquisitor hissed, spittle forming at the corners of his mouth. "I say," Bosch replied, his voice dry but unwavering, "that my demons are not yours to burn." The silence that followed was heavier than the iron bell above the church tower. Then with solemn grace, Bosch unfurled the canvas. The image was unholy, not because of nudity or devils, but because of what it revealed. A bloated cardinal weeping coins. A bishop with a wolf's muzzle. Children shackled to doctrine. And in the center, a self-portrait, mouth sewn shut, eyes peeled open. It was a confession and an accusation all at once. The inquisitor staggered back. The crowd muttered. But no flames came. No cell was prepared. Hieronymus Bosch was not imprisoned. For what prison could hold a man who had already walked through hell? Instead he was exiled. Banished from the decent world. Forbidden from painting under his name. The sentence they believed was worse than death. But Bosch? Bosch simply smiled. Part 4: The Devil's Workshop. He wandered far. Through broken cities and rotting fields. Through forests thick with the scent of death and rebirth. Some say he entered Italy under another name. Others that he lived in an abandoned abbey haunted by ghosts of long-dead monks. But wherever he went, his brush followed. He painted in secret, On walls of caves, on driftwood, on the backs of mirrors. He painted not for glory but to survive. To vomit the visions that clawed at his brain every time he closed his eyes. There were no more commissions. No more patrons with their smug faces and hungry gold. Only the art. And the madness. He painted a woman birthing a church that bled from the womb. He painted animals devouring kings and velvet thrones. He painted a staircase of teeth leading into a screaming sun. And then, one night he stopped. It was winter and the moon was red. Bosch collapsed on the cold stone floor of a shepherd's hut, alone but for his final canvas. The wind howled like a dying choir. He saw at last his own death, but not with fear, with awe. Part 5, The Garden of Unearthly Things. Years later, the work would be discovered in a dusty cathedral attic, wrapped in rotting linen. A triptych, immense and terrifying. The left panel, Eden but wrong. Creatures not from this world frolicked beneath trees that bore hands instead of fruit. Men kissed fish. Women gave birth to glass globes. Nothing made sense, yet everything felt inevitable. The center, pure chaos. Pleasure turned to horror. Bodies in contortions of lust and pain. A man with a flute jammed through his skull. A woman with a face made of insects. A beast reading scripture as it devoured a choir boy. A paradise of nightmares. And the right, the aftermath. Oh, not flames but frost. Cities crumbled. Faces melted. The sky collapsed in on itself. And Bosch again stood in the distance, alone. His eyes empty, his hands dripping with color and regret. Art historians would name it the Garden of Earthly Delights. But they would never understand it. Because they didn't know what it cost him. Part 6, The Smile of the Abyss. Hieronymus Bosch died quietly. No grand funeral. No marble tomb. Just a breathless artist, fingers stained with every hue of apocalypse. But his work lived. And it spread like disease. Carried by soldiers, monks, madmen. Whispers of the mad Dutchman reached far corners of the world. Some praised him. Some condemned him. Some swore his paintings moved when no one was watching. Centuries passed. And yet, his images still haunt museums, books, nightmares. Because Bosch didn't paint fantasy. He painted what most people spend their entire lives trying not to see. The filth beneath silk. The rot beneath faith. The beast beneath the mirror. And sometimes, late at night, a lonely artist stares into a blank canvas and swears they feel something behind them. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. Just like Bosch.